Awesome. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name's Mandy Medley. I'm one of the worker owners here at Pilsen Community Books. Yeah. If you haven't been here before, welcome. We are a radical bookstore and a worker cooperative. We specialize in left history and politics, as well as literary fiction, especially literature and translation. We're open 7 days a week. We absolutely love to host events like this. This is one of the highlights of the entire year. Thank you so much, Kelly and Athena, for being here tonight to celebrate Read This When Things Fall Apart. Round of applause. It is such an honor to be not here, not with Kelly and Athena, but to be in this room full of activists and organizers and comrades. I recognize so many of you to mark the publication of this book. I think all of us being here to listen to this conversation tonight must be a small but cozy example of what Eman Abdelhadi refers to in her piece in this book as collective effervescence. And I'm so grateful to be in this room full of people who are just as committed to working to build the world we want to see as they are to theorizing about it. So thank you all for being here, and thank you again for making this possible. And I also want to say thank you to every single person who pre-ordered this book from us, and for Kelly for running the pre-orders to the store. This project is wonderful and we love it, but it's a very precarious project. And this by far was the largest pre-order we've ever received. It was so immense. We had no idea. The orders just kept flowing in for months and months. And those pre-orders helped us pay our health insurance bill for the year. So thank you. That was a direct form of aid for us. So thank you so much. And thanks to AK Press too. And thanks to each of you for everything you bring to this space, not just tonight, but all the events I see you at. And for helping to keep this project going with your time and your enthusiasm and your support. Thank you so much. We're very grateful. And just a few small things before I get out the way. There is a bathroom right here next to the water fountain. Help yourself whenever. We're not picky about it. And we're also, as you can hear, next door to a bar. You will hear gentle sounds of the bass. Thank you. You get the vibe, so I hope you can flow with it. We do have a mic here, too. And we have additional copies of the book, as well as Eman and Athena's books up there, so help yourself after the event. And I'm sure Kelly's already signed some, but I'm sure, would you be willing to sign copies of your books?
Yes, yeah.
Great. Okay, and so now without further delay, I'll introduce tonight's guests. Kelly Hayes is a Menominee author, organizer, movement educator, and photographer. They host Truth Out's podcast, Movement Memos, and are the co-author of the book, Let This Radicalize You, with Miriam Kaba. Hayes is also the creator of Organizing My Thoughts, a weekly newsletter about politics and justice work, which we read every week when it comes in our inbox, so thank you for that. And Atena O is a cultural worker who imagines Black liberation engaged in boundless curiosity. As a poet, singer, and visual artist, they create work that encompasses kitchen table specificity and folk story relatability, covering topics including neurodiversity, human connection, and collective liberation. As an organizer and activist, she has worked to incorporate struggles for justice in her life as a caregiver in a family of complex needs, while also writing and publishing in journals, anthologies, and her own book of poetry, Incantations for Rest, which we have over there. It is so nice to host you again. Thank you for being
here. Thank you for that warm introduction. I know some of you might have been here hoping to hear from Eman Abdelhadi tonight, as we were, of course, very excited to hear from Eman. Unfortunately, there was a bit of an emergency that Eman had to attend to, and she's going to try to join us a little later on. But I'm really grateful to be here. I also want to say that I'm experiencing something right now that a bunch of you are probably experiencing too, in that this was a really active day in my neighborhood for community defense. And I want to recognize that it can be very hard to sort of gear shift psychologically between some of these different really charged experiences we're having right now, and then the moments where we're trying to be present in a different way, or we want to enjoy something together as a community. Like this can be really challenging. So I just want to invite us to take a few long, deep breaths. thank you for joining me in that. I'm still finding my way back to a grounded state. Earlier today, I found myself in a parking lot in Warren Park on the north side, where ICE agents, I think they were Border Patrol specifically, were moving a bunch of detainees from one vehicle to another. And it's one of those horrific situations where you want to do something, and the most you can do is document and record this nightmare that's unfolding before you. And I'm grateful to everyone who does that, right? Who takes the time to feel that horror, that discomfort, so that we can preserve evidence and give our ICE watchers and our advocacy organizations the information that they need to respond in an appropriate manner to what's going on, and to have the knowledge they need. But it was quite a shift. It wasn't what I was expecting to be doing before being here tonight. But I'm very grateful to be here tonight, and grateful to all of you for joining us amid everything that's happening. There are so many important things that are happening right now. And yeah, you could be any of those places, but you chose to be here, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to Pilsen Community Books for hosting us. I was so heartened to hear that the book has been helpful to this deeply important community space. I can't imagine a better way to launch the book than by helping to sustain Chicago's only worker-owned bookstore. And I have tremendous gratitude for my co-contributors, including my dear friend Atena O and Eman, who I hope will be able to make it later, to AK Press, and to everyone who made this book possible. This book, Read This When Things Fall Apart, Letters to Activists in Crisis, is a care package I made for you with my friends. I have already heard from people who say this book is helping them to navigate and endure these times. And that really means the world to me amid everything we're up against. As an organizer, as a movement journalist, as a writer, I am always trying to make things that are useful. I want to offer people ideas, art, and strategies that make our resistance stronger and that help us survive together. This book is something I couldn't have made on my own. No one person could have written it. It's a patchwork of strength, wisdom, empathy, advice, and ideas for activists in crisis. It's drawn from the experiences and survival work of 20 people who all wanted to offer something helpful to people of conscience who are doing their best and having a hard time. We needed each other to make this book, which I think embodies an important truth about these times, that we can only survive together. I am honored to be the steward of this project. It feels more like a project I organized than a book that I edited, but it is both of those things. In the beginning, it was an idea that I had, and like a lot of my ideas, there was a big version and a small version. If only a few of my friends thought it was a good idea and followed through on making it happen, it would have been a really cool zine. But as more and more people joined in and the letters blossomed, it was clear we had a book on our hands. I really thought it was going to be a zine. Let This Radicalize You, my book with Miriam Kaba, was also supposed to be a zine. So I guess there's a lesson in this for me about trying to make zines and how much work that's going to lead to. In Let This Radicalize You, I wrote about my rides home with Miriam after actions we co-organized and participated in together, and about conversations we had during those rides that were transformative for me. Sometimes a single conversation can help us reframe everything, or bring our ideas into alignment in a way that fuels and empowers us. I said in the introduction to Let This Radicalize You that I wanted that text to be a book full of rides home. In this book, I feel like we're trying to model another way in which we show up for each other and empower each other in the context of movements. something challenging, that it's not always easy to do well, showing up for people during dark times when they're discouraged, frightened, and unsure of what to do next. As many of you may know from experience, showing up during moments like that is not about having all of the answers or telling people exactly what to do. Sometimes we might be able to share some meaningful analysis or help people ask some of the right questions. But often the best we can do is say, I'm so sorry. I understand. I've been there. And here's what I can tell you about what I got right, what I got wrong, what I learned, and how I kept going. We wrote letters to extend those thoughts lovingly and with as much encouragement as possible. We chose letter writing as a form because there's something very personal and very human about letter writing, and that felt important in these dehumanizing times. We wanted to reach out to people, to friends and to co-strugglers we hadn't met yet, and extend something that they could grab onto. We are here to celebrate this book, but I want to name and hold space for the fact that we are living through a really difficult moment together. People are struggling to meet their basic needs. Essential services are being cut, and our communities are under attack. Over 3,000 of our neighbors across Chicagoland have been stolen from us by a fascist government. This is a time of great loss and heartache in our city, a time of unsafety and precarity. But this moment has also involved one of the greatest shows of solidarity across Chicagoland in my lifetime. Neighbors are coming together and organizing walking school buses, volunteering for ICE patrols, doing rapid response work, and taking direct action in defense of their communities. People are educating each other about their rights and doing mutual aid work to help neighbors keep food in their refrigerators. Monday night in Rogers Park, on a day when ICE took at least 10 people from that neighborhood, in spite of people's best efforts to protect each other. Over 100 people gathered to lift a lighted message that read, "Resist ICE," on the Morse L platform. Many of those people were ICE patrol volunteers and rapid responders in Rogers Park and surrounding neighborhoods who had been in the streets all day, blowing their whistles, documenting, and raising the alarm about ICE. I had been out on patrol myself for many hours. And when I got home, feeling frustrated and furious, I put out a call asking if people might want to join me at the Morse L to uplift that message. I thought maybe 10 or 20 people would show up. And I thought that would be wonderful because I thought those 10 or 20 people probably needed each other right now and needed a way to reach for each other. I was so heartened as more and more people showed up until the crowd spilled off the sidewalks. We grieved, we raged, and we sang together. We spoke out, and as we held that space together and created an image that has traveled around the country, I could feel my nervous system reset, moving from a place of agitation to feeling hurt but held and understood and cared for. We were there because we needed each other and because this is the time when we need to keep reaching for each other rather than being alone in our pain. I organized this book in the same spirit that I organized that action. And I think I understood the need for both because I know how it feels to be confused and battered amid your best efforts and to feel frustrated and lonely, even when you're not alone. I know what many of you are pushing through, not just emotionally, but in terms of economic and social barriers and the risks you're taking in order to show up right now. Some people have been arrested for solidarity work in these times, and some are at risk of deportation because of the work they have done in defense of others. I know that you're putting a lot on the line right now. I know what some of you are losing. I know that you're hurting, and I want to say that I am so sorry and that it shouldn't be this way. And also that I am so damn proud of you and of this city and of everyone who is doing what they can where they are to oppose this violence. Not everyone is making that choice. because what you're doing isn't easy. The emotional toll of staying engaged, of responding rather than recoiling, of trying and winding up frustrated, exhausted, and grief-stricken can sometimes feel intolerable. I am right there with you, and honestly, it feels really strange right now to be promoting a book amid everything that's happening. But I'm able to do it because the truth is, this book was made for this moment. Not with any great specificity, as we did not have a blueprint for what this stage of fascism and authoritarianism would look like. But it's been clear for some time that we were on a rough trajectory, not just here in the United States, but globally. A lot of terrible things have been in motion for a long time. Some of what we're experiencing represents a boomerang of horrors that were outsourced or cultivated elsewhere to maintain the status quo here in the United States. I'm not going to catalog all of the injustices and ugly probabilities at work right now, because I don't think you need to hear that. You know that under capitalism, climate chaos has gone unchecked, and who's paying the cost. You know that there are genocides, including the genocide in Gaza, that we have not amassed the power to stop. You wouldn't be here if you weren't aware of those things. So I want to speak to you tonight in the spirit that this book was written, with an understanding that this is a very hard time to be a person who gives a damn, who refuses to harden or withdraw, who doesn't give up on other people, even when they disappoint us, and who is trying, failing, messing up, and trying again, because giving up is not an option. We wrote this book for you, because we appreciate you, and because we need you. We know that people are regularly ground out of our movements by disappointment, by heartbreak, and by burnout. We wanted to make something you could reach for during moments of crisis and uncertainty, something that might help you do the next right thing, and something that might help you stay in the struggle. Rather than reading an excerpt from the book, I am going to read a short extra letter that I wrote for people who pre-ordered the book through AK Press or from this bookstore. These words feel connected to this place and to my hopes that this book could play a small part in sustaining my favorite bookstore. Dear friends, I am writing you this note during a terrible time in Chicago. Waves of federal agents are terrorizing Chicagoland, disappearing our neighbors, and creating a climate of fear across our communities. Our local hotline for ICE sightings is getting between 250 and 400 calls a day. Our rapid response teams are overworked, and everyone is tired. But people are showing up for each other. Neighbors are forming crowds and getting loud when ICE agents are spotted. Hundreds of people at a time are showing up for workshops and community meetings. Individuals and businesses are delivering groceries to people who are afraid to leave their homes, and local parents are organizing to walk the children of immigrant families to school. Teachers, clinicians, baristas, and many others have devised plans about how to respond if ICE shows up. People are organizing, people are practicing care, and people are protesting. As I write these words, there's a plastic bag of my clothes bundled up nearby that I can't mix with the rest of my laundry because they're contaminated with tear gas and pepper ball residue. I've been protesting outside the Broadview ICE facility, which is the main processing center for Operation Midway Blitz, the government's ongoing assault on Chicagoland. It is the site of resistance and refusal, where people put their bodies on the line to block ICE vehicles and raise their voices against the violence of deportation and detention. We have been attacked indiscriminately again and again at this location. We have also cared for each other amid these attacks, blushing each other's burning eyes and passing out KN95s, gas masks, and impact-resistant goggles. We have also shared moments of political communion, singing together, comforting one another, and holding moments of silent memorial. It's that sense of political communion that I want to address here. These days, I hear people criticize the effectiveness of nearly every protest. If an action is artful and expressive, people say it serves no material purpose. If an action involves squaring off with the state, people will complain that the state wasn't actually thwarted in its violence, since protesters are usually outmatched and overpowered. This mentality misunderstands protest and how power and courage are built. There are 4 primary reasons to plan a direct action. The first is to plan an action within the scope of a strategic campaign. The second is to mark or respond to a momentous occasion, such as an anniversary, a major event, or a call to action. The third involves fulfilling a community need in a manner that's inherently political. Harm reduction can be liberatory and a form of direct action. The last reason is political communion. It's for us. It's about affirming our values and inspiring us to recommit ourselves to a cause. It's about recognizing what we owe to each other and enlivening our sense of connection and fellowship. In this alienated, siloed society, political communion is a jailbreak of the imagination. But solidarity must be cultivated. We must provide people with opportunities to ground themselves in their values. What do they hold sacred? What do they owe to each other? Whether those questions are explored at a low-risk, artful demonstration, a solemn vigil, or a confrontation with ICE agents, the experience of political communion is essential to our growth, our solidarity, and the cultivation of our collective courage. To be effective, we must foster transformation. What makes you feel connected? What makes you feel brave? How can you build a moment that allows others to share those feelings? Such moments won't break us free all at once. Nothing will. But we won't get free without them. We are living in opposition to fascism, which is not only normalized, but a dominant cultural force in our lives. As we build the moments, relationships, and formulations we need to navigate these times, I know you will encounter moments like this one, like the one we are experiencing in Chicago. Exhaustion, frustration, grief, and so many doubts will crowd your mind as you try to focus on the work in front of you. You will make mistakes, and you may become discouraged. Your pride in your community and your love of your co-strugglers may sustain you, but you will also be haunted by fear, because the people who give you hope are also vulnerable to repression and violence. During such times, it is deeply important to organize and attend events that will help ground you in your sense of purpose and deepen your bonds with others. I also hope that this book can serve as a resource in such moments, when it feels like things are falling apart, and that you can turn to the words we've shared here for a bit of comfort and guidance. I am grateful to you for supporting this project, and I hope it inspires you to keep reaching for each other. In spite of all the ways we sometimes disappoint each other, we are each other's best hope. So let's find each other, sing together, hold space, lock arms, and build the power we need to remake the world. In times like these, it's important to find your people. But if you're having one of those moments when it feels like the walls are closing in and your people aren't there to hold your hand, remember you can reach for this book. It was made for you with love and solidarity, and I hope you keep it close. Stay strong and stay in the struggle. Much love, Kelly. I knocked the thing down because that's my brand. And before I move into a question for my friend Atena, I also want to share with you the dedication in this book. It says, for all of the activists, organizers, movement artists, healers, water protectors, land defenders, mutual aid workers, truth tellers, and freedom fighters who have refused to give up, or who gave up that came back.
Can I do a thing before we get into questions?
Yes, you may.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Atena, and as Kelly was saying, this was a very tough day. If you are in more than 2 signal threads right now, you know what I'm talking about. It just keeps coming. I'm going to have signal PTSD when all this is over. So Kelly mentioned regulating the nervous system. I'm just going to real quick do a little nervous system regulation. I invite you to join me. I am, of course, as always, when I am super stressed out, going to sing a little bit. If you know this song, please sing along with me, or hum, or what have you. It's not a political song, it's just comforting to me, and I just need a little bit of extra comfort right now. So
everything is political.
You know what? Absolutely. Sorry, I forgot because my nervous system. You get it. You get it. All right. So join me if you like. Lying in my bed, I hear the clock tick and think of you. Caught up in circles, confusion is nothing new. Flashback, warm nights, almost left behind. Suitcase of memories. Time after sometimes you think of me. I'm walking too far ahead. You're calling to me. I can't hear what you said. You say go slow. I fall behind. The second hand unwinds. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting. Time after time. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting. Time after time. Okay, thank you so much. I feel better now. Thank you all.
Thank you for that, Atena. I'm a little emotional. I have had an old friend who used to sing that to me, an activist named Lisa, who's not with us anymore. But I always appreciate being reminded of her. Thank you for your beautiful voice, Atena. So I wanted to talk about your letter. A letter to a parent who is feeling isolated or alienated in movement spaces is so important. Can you talk about why this letter was needed? I would also love to hear any advice you might have in this moment of mass activation in Chicago for parents who are newly joining movement spaces, like some of the folks who are joining school patrols and organizing for the first time in those spaces. What do you want them to know, and what do you want to say to the rest of us about how to welcome them?
Thank you for asking that. It's so important. So much of what is happening, particularly with the school patrols, is parents getting activated for fear of safety of their own children, but also, the children that are also part of their school communities. I wrote the letter that I wrote because I needed that letter, and I did not have it when I became a parent. I needed someone to talk to me about your life as a person who's not a parent is not entirely over. You've changed, but you will come back to the things that you knew, but you will come back as a different person, and you still have ways to get involved in the things that you care about. You don't have to abandon your values of creativity and justice, because taking care of a real live human is so hard. It's so much work, and it is so encompassing to the point where, you know, you can start to believe maybe I won't get back to where I was and what I used to be. I grew up in a family of activists, organizers, people doing political action. So that's the very foundation of who I am. And thankfully, because of that, I was able to return to that. If I hadn't had that foundation, who knows exactly how this would have gone. And similar with my creative life, I came from a family of artists and writers, so I was able to go back to that. And so I wrote that letter imagining someone like me who felt such a strong pull to become engaged in political action and justice work, but also conversely felt the tension of the engulfing experience of taking care of humans who cannot take care of themselves. So I thought that was really important. And right now, what I really, well, first I want to say, you know, particularly, I live in Evanston, and I want to particularly give a shout out to the parents kind of organizing in the school spaces in Evanston, because I'm really, really proud of the ways that people have come together to take care of each other. There's a very strong ethos that happens in suburban spaces where it's like, you know, my kid, my family, my thing gets protected first, and then I'll think about all you other plebeians or whatever. But I really feel like I've seen people jump in and say, no, we're doing this together. We're taking care of each other. You know, we're coming out, we're accepting the whistles, we're making the packets. This is kind of fun. Today, some of the parents realized that the end of recess signal was like 3 sharp whistles. And they're like, oh no, that's not going to work. And so they talked to the recess monitor, and they're like, can we do something different? So now they have agreed to use a cowbell for recess.
More cowbell.
More cowbell. We definitely have more cowbell jokes in the family patrol chat, and I love it because it has heartened me in a way that I really needed. I haven't felt this kind of boost since the students started doing the encampments, really. And that's the kind of feeling that I'm getting now, seeing parents show up. And of course, I want to give a shout out to my beloved Rogers Park. I was there Monday night. Now I live in Evanston, but I was a Rogers Park resident for longer than anywhere else in my adult life. And it always, always lives in my heart. So proud of all those neighbors committing to take care of each other. So, you know, Rachel Maddow could talk about that, but she talked about my town, Evanston, which is fine. I love Evanston. I'm proud of them too. But Rogers Park is just so fantastic. So yeah, I want parents to know, like, that's the move. Take care of each other. And this has always been the move. You know, I am an educator. I am an advocate for, you know, support for parents and for educators, which are 2 groups that are often pitted against each other and often find ways to, you know, take issue with each other. But the combined power of those 2 groups would really shift the landscape of the entire nation if we could find that. And I want to encourage people, lean into that. Lean into your collaboration with teachers. Lean into your connection with each other for the sake of protecting each other, protecting your community. The collective is really the way to go. That's what I talk about in my letter. Lean into the collective, because that is what ultimately is going to keep us safe. Has anything else kept us really very safe? No, individualism has not kept us safe. Saying this for mine, you know, we got ours, that has not kept us safe. But we see people finding ways to keep each other safe. We see people, you know, being abducted and kidnapped, and it's heartbreaking. But we also see people understanding, oh, I can actually depend on the people around me. And I cannot think of a more fortifying message. So that is my very long answer to that question.
Thank you so much for that, Atena. And I'm really grateful for all that I've had the opportunity to learn from you around how those of us who don't know what it's like to try to be a parent while also trying to do our part in the movement can not only make space for, but truly be welcoming of families. Because let's be real, it is a shortcoming in a number of our spaces. And I was not always thinking about the ways in which we weren't making things as accessible as we could, or we weren't asking the right questions around allowing people to engage in the ways that were best for them. Early on in Lifted Voices, when we were taking into account things like my disability and what that means for me in getting arrested, and the considerations we had to have around, okay, if I am going to get arrested, these are the ways we have to try to make this as safe as possible for me and for this body. And we had to have the same kind of conversations around, what about Atena and the people who are parents who are risking arrest? What does it mean if they get arrested? What are the different things that have to be done or handled? And what can we do to insulate people who we want to make sure get back to their kids tonight? And Atena knows that one of my favorite stories to tell is about a time when we tried to do that. We had a plan, and Atena had a prominent role in an action and was supposed to be insulated from the part where people started going to jail. And if you've done direct action, nothing goes to plan. It just doesn't work that way. And suddenly I turn around and Atena's on the wrong side of the police line, and I'm like, fuck. And so I call Chris, Atena's partner who's here tonight, and I'm like, Chris, I'm very sorry. We made a plan. We did our best. But the police have Atena. I think Atena is going to jail. And Chris said, oh, well, thank you for letting me know. And thank you for organizing. I was very grateful for that. And it meant a lot how you handled that in that moment. Fortunately, Atena and my other comrade, who were at that time behind the police line, were just able to wander off because the police got distracted and had a lot on their hands in that moment. So it worked out. Sometimes you got to be good at wandering off. But I'm very grateful for these lessons. And one thing I kind of took to heart, I think that I learned from my friends who are parents, is I leave things when they're supposed to end. Like, I leave the meeting when the meeting is supposed to end. And I'm one of those people who probably could stay a little longer. But we have to respect people's time. And we have to respect the other demands that exist upon people's time, that it shouldn't be incumbent upon them to name to us. Someone shouldn't have to explain to us, I have to go give my kid their medicine. I have to pick up my kids. Or I am too tired to sit here 1 minute longer because I am balancing caretaking and holding down a job and trying to contribute to this movement. That when you say you need me from this hour to this hour, that's what it should mean. And not that then I missed the important decision getting made that got made at the 11th hour because we didn't facilitate this well or structure our time well. So I'm really grateful to you for these lessons. And for those of us who are stumbling along and trying to welcome new folk right now, do you have any advice around that specific to this moment?
I think this applies across the board. Well, I'll say for myself, parenting and ADHD have taught me to give people a lot of grace, because incredible, fantastic things can be happening behind the scenes that we don't know about, that are impacting how we can show up. And that's, I talked about this in our virtual launch. Parenting is not a disability. However, society creates disabling barriers for parents, and it's very important to understand that. And therefore, there are a lot of opportunities for solidarity between people who are parenting, people who are disabled, and the overlap between those groups, because obviously each has the other in it. But I would love for people to really think about what that would look like, to sort of take an accessibility lens to the idea of welcoming parents into movement spaces, because as with considerations for disability and access, when you meet those needs, more needs are met across the board. And so how can we really think about serving more people by meeting more needs, by centering those who are pushed to the margins the furthest, and pulling them back towards the center of power? I think that's really important. And again, not everybody operates on the same operating system. It's so funny to me. Some people say things like, I don't understand why you just can't show up on time. That's fucking hilarious. What? What is time? That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything to me as an individual human being. As an individual human being moving two other human beings around who also have ADHD, forget about it. I want people to give each other grace. Assume, what's that goofy meme, like everybody's fighting a battle? It's true. It's goofy, but it's true. And if we want our movements to be sustainable, they cannot only include people who are right now adults. And if you want the next generation to be a part of this movement work in a way that is the most effective and the most collective, then you're going to have to involve parents actively in that work. Parents are going to have to access spaces, and those spaces are going to have to accommodate families, unless we want us to be the last people organizing, which I don't think that we do, right? We would like this to continue as long as it needs to. So yeah, just think about the long game. The long game involves, it's a transgenerational thing. We should be, reaching into the wisdom of our elders and our ancestors, and we should be bringing that forth to the next generation so that they know how to protect each other and themselves. It really just makes sense. Our society is so individualistic that I think it becomes very, very easy just to be like, well, that's somebody else's problem. But like when we say we're all in this together, we are all in this together. Children aren't people. They are whole, actualized people wherever they are in their timeline. And they have incredible capacity to add to our movements. And in similar ways that people with disabilities are often discounted, forgotten, invisibilized, we also do that with children and families. And I think it would behoove us to take a different approach collectively.
Thank you for that. And let's be real, if it ain't intergenerational, it ain't gonna work. We are not gonna make it by, I think that there's a really bad habit long term in our movements of fetishizing young people, which is really just a way of heaping all responsibility on young people. Like I've heard people say like, oh, our generation failed, it's up to us now to follow the youth. That's a fucking cop-out. That is a way of rejecting the reality that is on all of us to figure this out together. And instead of just throwing waves at young people at a problem until within 5 years most of them burn out, and hoping that maybe just enough of that generation will stick around for 20 years to be mentors. Like, this is the most unsustainable way of possibly doing this. And this is reflected in our success, I think in a lot of ways. And I'd like to add to this notion of welcoming new people, because that's a real thing right now. A lot of us are mixing in with folks who are newly activated, which is very exciting and can lead to some really frustrating moments for us and for them. Because as much as folks may say things sometimes that just kind of blow our minds, and it's like, whoa, the naivety, or like, wow, I can't believe this person just said this to me. I want us to remember that as leftists, we are also insufferable. Hey, we're insufferable sometimes. It is a beautiful thing to be part of a community that self-selected into struggle, of people who showed up time after time and even year after year, building a culture in opposition to the death-making that is trying to crush us all and keep us in our silos until we drown there. And also, that has made some of us insular. It has made some of us superior in our responses to people who are no different than we used to be, or no different than we could easily be. We need to practice patience and remember that patience is a practice and not a feeling. We need more people. And if there were enough people just like me and just like you to win this thing, we would have won it already. And we would not be in this daunting situation that we're in right now, where fascism is nearly at its peak ascendance. We aren't there yet. There is still time. But we're gonna need millions of people working in collaboration. People who don't always have to agree, but people who are willing to have each other's backs in the streets and in the larger struggle, regardless of a large spectrum of difference and disagreement that's going to exist between us. So I think we need to move with that understanding that there's the fascists and there's the rest of us. There's those of us who are willing to have each other's backs in opposition to these attacks. And in Chicago, I think we're in a prime position to not only really learn that and internalize that together, but also to teach it to the country that is watching us right now. Because people across this country are watching us right now. And many of them are inspired. And many of them are taking notes. And many of them are actually learning from the infrastructure that organizers have spent years building here around Ice Watch. And there is an amazing lineage behind that work as well. Ice Watch comes from Cop Watch, which comes from the Black Panther Party and lineages of Black liberation. But you know what I also see in that resistance? I see the lineages of Native people who hid each other's children when so-called social workers came to take away people like my father, who were taken from the reservation and adopted by white families or turfed into boarding schools. We have long lineages of protecting families, of defending our neighbors. We're drawing on all of that right now and not recreating something. We're not inventing something. We're reminding all of us what we're made of. And I'm really grateful to be in this struggle with people who are doing that.
Can I say one more thing about welcoming people on? I want to say one more thing about bringing people into to this movement work, because we have a capacity issue right now. We need to expand capacity real big, real fast, but also with, care and intention. People don't stay in movement spaces for the super awesome analysis that you've gotten from all of your reading and late night debates. They might enter it for that vibe, but people stay for belonging. That is why people stay anywhere that they stay. These assholes kidnapping people off the street, they're doing that because they have a place they belong right now. Belonging is what drives us at the very core of humanity. Belonging is why we make so many of the decisions that we make. And if we push people out of belonging for dumb, petty shit, they're going to find another place to belong, and they're going to hate this place that they tried to belong but push them out for dumb, petty shit. Let's really think about how to create belonging where we can encourage analysis, but also remember there was a time where we learned the things that we know. I didn't know about Palestine when I was 20 years old. I didn't know about Palestine when I was 30 years old. I did not know about the injustice, the century of abuse and oppression. I didn't know about that. Now I'm like, well, obviously, this is a problem and we need to do something about it. I didn't always know that, I used to be transphobic when I was younger. I didn't know. I was a kid. I said some fucked up stuff, you know, and then I learned things. I have a trans kid now. I will fight you. I will fight you over this kid, you know. So let's think about how to cultivate belonging. That is really so much of the center of why people decide to stay in a place. And we need people to stay in movement with us. We need to keep people motivated to be in this fight for justice with us. And if they feel the entire time like they're being told you're doing it wrong, who stays for that? Do you stay for that? Not usually. And if you do, you feel shitty about it. And don't we feel shitty enough right now? Are we like at capacity maybe for shittiness? I think probably everybody is. Feelings are playing a bigger role than we were led to believe. And I just really want people to remember that. Feelings, belonging, nervous system. Let that guide you.
Thank you for that. And you know, something else this brings up for me, I really appreciate Femi Taiwo, who lately has been echoing this notion of bring back shame. And I think shame really has its place. But a conversation I had with a friend recently who's a parent and whose child really demands to know when they can shame people and when they can't. Because they really, really want to shame some people about some of the social justice concepts they've learned as a young child. And I was talking to my friend about pro-social shame. And that, you know, we can, as Atena says, have a sense of belonging and want to belong to a community and not want to disappoint that community. And that can be what we call pro-social shame. You know, it's like I have a sense that I don't want to show up and tell you all that I did something messed up because I don't want to disappoint you because you're my people. And I want us to be in alignment around our values. And I want us to be proud of each other. And so I think that that's something to think about too. Is are we building spaces and creating connections where people want to be in good stead with us? And sometimes that's how we're going to gain the ground that we want to gain. That when something doesn't land well with us, they'll want to understand why. And they'll want to get on the right side of the group of people who they want to be in right relationship with. My people use that phrase a lot, in right relationship. It's aspirational. We are constantly trying to figure out how to navigate this messy shit of relating to each other and not hurting each other, of showing up in a good way. And we can create spaces where people are largely aspiring to show up in a good way, even if they don't fully understand, even if they're still trying to find their feet. And that is the goal. And sometimes shit will happen that we have to be like, oh, we don't do that here. Have a whole moment about it. But we can also create spaces where people are gonna want to try. They're gonna want to try because they want to feel like these are their people. And I think we need to think about what it means to do that and whether or not we're doing the work of creating a space that fosters that intention. And so the last question I want to ask Atena before we open the floor to questions for you all. We wrote these letters some time ago. A lot has happened since then. If you were writing another letter today to add to this book or to send as a paper airplane to a particular front of struggle, what would you talk about and what would you say?
I think probably I would probably write a poem, put a poem in there, and I would talk about the stuff I just said, like nervous systems and relationships and feelings and belonging, because that's how we make these decisions about what we're doing at the end of the day. But we, you know, if you were brought up in the society that we were brought up in, you're led to believe all these weird like myths and lies about like how stuff gets done, and it's like it's all like logic and formulas and it's just feelings. It's just like four feelings at the end of the day driving all the things that we do. I would probably say, if you're mad, say you're mad. If you're sad, say that you are sad. If you are disappointed, say that you are disappointed. And if you need something like a hug or just someone to listen to you, ask for that. Because doing those things will create so much more space to be able to move forward into the things that you actually want to be doing. Because barriers are created when we don't meet those needs. And it's so simple. Just not acknowledging, like, I am sad today, creates so many barriers to the things that we want to be doing. Not being able to say to someone, it really disappointed me when you said that, creates so many barriers. Acknowledge your feelings and learn how to reset your nervous system, because your nervous system is what's keeping you from having the conversations that you need to have with people. It's keeping you from addressing conflict. It's keeping you from telling people what you really think. And I don't know if that will make sense in the paper airplane letter that I send, but I stand by it. Nervous system, feelings, focus on that.
I appreciate that so much, and it reminds me of some advice that my friend Dean Spade gives in Love in a Fucked Up World, which is a great book that everyone should just be gifted as soon as they get into movement space, because it addresses so many of the dynamics that we wind up creating and dealing with in our personal relationships and also in the movement space. But one thing Dean reminds us of is sometimes you just have to acknowledge to yourself, I'm afraid right now. And if we can stop and name that to ourselves, and I've noticed it, I've made it a practice. Sometimes I'll just stop, I'll put my hand on my heart and tell myself, you're afraid right now. And understand the things that is provoking in me, and that is bringing out in me that aren't necessarily a part of what I want to do strategically or how I want to treat people, that maybe are making me overbearing, maybe are potentially going to knock me out of alignment with my values and how I want to show up in a moment, and that maybe even are an expression of love but aren't going to be understood or felt that way. So telling yourselves, you're afraid right now, and just admitting that rather than rationalizing all of the impulses that come from that can really help us find the ground and figure out what the next right step is that is actually in alignment with our values and what we owe to the people around us and what we owe to ourselves. If I were going to write another letter right now, I think one of the things I'd want to talk about is joy. This is something Miriam and I talk about a lot, is we need joy, and people will shit on you for naming that. People will guilt trip you. People will get down on you for naming this really basic reality that we have this human need for joy. And that joy is part of how we sustain the struggle. It's not something that exists in opposition to it. It is part of it. It's part of staying whole. It's part of resisting what they want us to feel. Like the people who are terrorizing our city right now, those of us who are up worried about this shit, those of us who are trying to regulate our nervous system so we can move from a day of chasing them around the neighborhood to coming into a space like this one, they don't want us to have joy. They want us to exist in that state of being terrorized all the time, of worrying all the time, of not getting to be fully human together. And last week, was it last week? Time isn't real. It feels maybe like it was last week. We had a Struggle Hour Halloween edition.
Yeah,
it was last week. Maya Shenwar and I co-organize these periodic events called Struggle Hour. It's like happy hour, but for leftists, we're not happy. And this particular Struggle Hour was the Halloween edition. So many folks were in costume. You know, we had pizza, we had drinks as we usually do, but we also did karaoke.
Best thing ever.
Yes. And this event ran long. And at some point, I went up to our host at Haymarket and I was like, when do you need us to clear out of here? I'll shut this down. And she said, I don't care. This is amazing. Because there were all of these joyful people, these wonderful queer, like loud, just outrageously weird people leading us in wonderful songs. And we all needed that so much. We just needed to get up there and be loud and be divas and be weird in wonderful ways together. And you have to forcibly make that space to feel something else during times like these. It is a way of resisting the destruction of parts of us that they want to destroy, of parts of our communities that they want to destroy. And I don't want to veer into this like, oh, all of my good feelings are resistance. I'm not a rest is resistance person. I'm not. But we do have to rest. We do have to have joy. We do have to keep ourselves whole. And not all of that will always be radical, right? But it's essential. And I can't be radical without attending to that which is essential. I run into these differences with people about this shit, and sometimes it's as silly as, there's a lot of masculinist bullshit in these movements. I came into movements at a time where there was like a lot of masculinist energy about like not having space for anybody's feelings or for healing or for grief. And we see shades of that now. When I was working with a lot of student groups who were doing Palestine solidarity work and encampments and all of this relentless, exhausting work, nothing is more exhausting than an encampment. It is the most difficult tactic that exists in the realm of direct action. And some of these groups were telling me that they wanted to arrange activities that were about grief, that were about processing their emotions, and they were getting pushback from some people, usually men, who would say, how dare we expect space for our grief, to process our feelings? The people of Palestine don't have time to grieve. They don't have space to process their feelings. How dare we expect to have this? And the thing is, organizing isn't about what anybody has a right to expect from anyone else. It's really important to square that. It's about what you can actually organize and mobilize people to do. And to organize and mobilize people to do something, they have to fucking trust you. And if you don't have a regard for their whole humanity, for their needs as a person, for the fact that they need to do things as simple as process grief and trauma, then why the fuck would they listen to you? On a long enough timeline, they won't. We can't move within our movements like fucking managers. Bosses can do that in the workplace because they have over us our needs to survive. And a lot of people mistake those dynamics where I might do what my manager at the video store said when I was 18 because I needed that fucking money to pay my rent. Like, that is a completely different thing than I'm showing up because I care and I need to trust these people and believe that we're all gonna be in this together and we all have each other's back in a way that this world wasn't designed to facilitate. That's what we really need to foster. So yeah, fuck this masculinist shit. Fuck this like, oh, I'm so tough. I didn't even eat breakfast. I just chew glass all the time. I call them the glass chewers. Don't be a fucking glass chewer. You need joy. Experience joy. Create space for joy for other people, and you will be fortified to do the hard stuff. End rant. And with that, I want to open the floor to questions.
First,
First of all, I have shit on. So, which one should I take? I just want to say something and then I'll ask a question. When October 7th happened, something you were just talking about, I called my friend and like somebody that I think, shut up. Oh, they were laughing at me. Sorry. That's my best friend. Sorry. I was after October 7th, I was not a lot of joy. Okay, obviously. And I called someone that I look to sometimes in times of crisis, named Sterling Tolles in Detroit. I don't know if anyone knows them, but they're fucking amazing. And they said, because we always talk about heart shit, HEART. And I was like, Sterling, what do we do? And he's like, we needed to put more love. When this shit happens, we need to put more love in the universe. I was like, what the fuck? I was so mad. I was like, no, we need to I was like, this is not the answer. And 2 years later, I'm sitting there. Yes, I was on some substances. And it clicked. It is part of it. Joy and love and what you guys talking about, rest or healing and all that stuff. All of it. And so I just wanted to echo what you said and underline that and underscore it. And sometimes it's hard for even me to, not even me, but for me to understand. My question is, okay, you guys were talking about we need to build movements or spaces where people feel welcome or they want to show up and they want to get the respect of people around them and chill with people and be cool and stuff. I look at the right after Charlie Kirk got popped in the neck, and I learned a lot because I didn't know about TPUSA. My half brother grew up in Wheeling, went to Wheeling High School. I found and became a fucking MAGA supporter after high school. Was in the streets with me as a kid. I would take him to Black Lives Matter stuff. He was down. And all of a sudden, American flag everywhere. I just clicked after Charlie Kirk got popped that he's from Wheeling High School, Charlie Kirk. And he started, TPUSA chapters all over the nation. So my brother was probably indoctrinated into that stuff. I had no idea. My question is, the right is really good at using, let's call it the church, but their version of a church, and organizing to organize young people with a lot of funding throughout this country. They have these things called TPUSA, which was Charlie Kirk's thing, as we all know now probably, at high school levels. Then they got regional levels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What are we doing? Where is do we have that? Is it happening? I remember the Black Panther, but what do we got today? I know we got maybe something here, but if we don't, what do we do? I'm so what do we do, y'all? What can we do?
Thank you, Pigeon. That's an excellent question. And I think one of the things I want to name in defense of folk who are trying to do that kind of work with young people is that the right is so flush with resources. They are so overfunded in their ability to start chapters of whatever damn thing they think might help them indoctrinate people. But I will say this does bring to mind for me, what Ruthie Gilmore often brings up around that there was a certain brilliance to the canvassing that she and her comrades did when they would show up and say, "Hi, I'm Ruthie Gilmore with the Communist Party, and I'm here to solve your problems." We on the left have to be moving not simply according to what we want people to be against and join with us in the projects we've already envisioned, but we need to be showing up amongst the communities we most want to mobilize and saying, I'm here to solve your problems. What's going on? And building structures around that, right? Creating chapters of organizations, creating, containers that are about addressing whatever the fuck the people we need are most concerned about, and trusting that we can grow from there the political projects that we need. And I also want us to think about what are our spaces even fucking like, right? Because when a person, walks into a new space because something sparked their interest, Maybe they came to this particular meeting about mutual aid that's happening because SNAP benefits got cut off and they're real worried about that. And they heard there was a thing happening, so they showed up. They don't know any of the people in that room. And maybe a bunch of those people are people like us who are used to showing up to rooms where we're going to recognize some people. And we're going to see some old friends, or we're going to see some faces we've seen before, and we kind of know the score about how this is going to move forward, and hope that it's well facilitated and whatever. Like, these people are walking in, and their nervous system is doing acrobatic shit. They're wondering, am I going to belong here? How am I going to be treated? Am I going to be judged for something? Do I have a place here? Am I wasting my time? Should I be one of the many other places I could be right now that are meaningful and important? Should I have gotten my homework done? Should I be watching Netflix?
Yeah.
and like, keep in mind how often we're competing with both the meaningful and meaningless things that people do with their time, and that both of those things are important to people, right? Because we're all fucking exhausted. So the time that we get to spend chilling out and rewatching The Good Place for the 800th time fucking matters to us. And so what does it mean to meet that person in that headspace in a good way? And the right is pretty decent at doing that with its target audience. So let's think about, what do people need when they walk into a room? For one thing, they need to be welcomed in a good way. I'm so glad you're here. Listen to them a bit. What brought them there? What are they interested in? Being responsive to that. What else are people thinking when they walk into a strange room? What do I do? We're all constantly learning through imitation. When we walk into a space and we don't know what we're supposed to be doing, we're looking around at what other people are doing and thinking like, oh, do I do that too? Simplify. Like, I'm so glad you're here. I'm Kelly. Get their name. It's like, oh, how did you hear about this? Are you interested in this? Hear whatever they want to share. Like, yeah, I'm really concerned about that too. Again, thank you so much for coming. We're all grabbing a little bit of food or a drink or doing this activity. You're welcome to join us in that if that feels good. Some people are also over here doing whatever. Simplifying things, welcoming people into shared activities, to shared experience, giving them a sense that they don't just have to figure it all out. Like, this is what we're doing together right now. You were invited to join us, and it is an invitation. You can choose to opt in to the things that feel good and choose to opt out of the things that don't. But I think we really need to remember the wholeness of people and think about, how do we address the kind of panic that people are feeling when they're trying to do something new for the first time. It's a fleeting opportunity when a person is willing to put themselves out there and try something new. And I'll tell you, people forget nice things that people say to them all the time. People do not forget the times that people make them feel shitty. And so if you blow that opening chance to make someone feel welcome, and to give them a chance to have a sense that this could be a space where they belong and do something good with other people and feel good about it, that shit's blown. So let's develop a practice of not blowing it.
All of that. The only thing I have to add to that is a little bit of science some of you are probably familiar with. Some of you may not be, so I'm just going to say it. I have a master's degree in child development. Child development is human development. I know a lot about the human brain. Our brains have a negativity bias. We have a negativity bias because we are looking for things that threaten our survival. So we're more oriented to, scary things, things that make us afraid, things that make us uncomfortable, because that's the thing that we really need to attend to. And our brain does not know the difference between threats. It's either a tiger or it's not. And if you can't, check your email and you've got 10,000 unread emails, it's because emails are tigers to your brain. So it's a fact. So just think about that when you're creating these spaces and people are looking for belonging. to this day, I'm 46 years old, and when I enter a room with people I don't know, it's like junior high again. And I'm like, oh my God, where am I going to sit? Who am I going to sit with? Who looks like me? Who's wearing clothes like me? Whose hair is like mine? We're all looking for that because, again, belonging. So how do we create that for people? How do we acknowledge that for people? How do we let people know that we see them in that, and we're going to take care of you, And if we don't, if people feel not cared for, they're going to go real fast into that negativity bias. And that is a biological imperative. So we really need to plan for that. The whole right-wing MAGA bullshit, they have a plan for that. They're like, oh, those leftists think they're smarter than you. We don't think that we're smarter than you. We're all the same. We're all on the same page. We're all, all that stuff. It's about belonging. We need to figure that out. They are out organizing us on belonging. And they play dirty.
Yes.
They lie. Yes. Still, we got to figure it out. We got to figure it out together because it's a very real thing, and we're tripping over it. If someone comes into the room and everyone's like, well, I'm an introvert, so I can't talk to them. Somebody has to talk to them, you guys. Figure it out. Somewhere, find an extrovert. Come find me. I will talk to them. But we have to figure it out. We have to talk about it because also my introvert friend is out of juice. I don't want, because they're not going to do a good job. I don't want them to do that. Let me do it. But we got to have that conversation amongst each other, and we don't leave it to chance, right? I think we've left too many things to chance, and we're paying for it now. We gotta organize around what motivates people.
Thank you for that, Atena. Other questions that anyone has?
How do you reconcile the disappointment of institutions that maybe led us to getting here, but then also are the very bulwark for defense against fascism?
This is an excellent question, and it reminds me of a standoff with the police that I was in years ago. I was part of the mental health movement, which some of you will remember. We were fighting for half of this city's remaining publicly funded mental health clinics under Rahm Emanuel during his campaign of mass austerity against this city. It was an extreme time of institutional violence. And in the closing 6 months of that campaign, we waged audacious direct action after audacious direct action. We seized the Woodlawn Clinic. We sunk steel rods into cement and occupied that place into the wee hours of the morning until a cut team from CPD sawed people out of that space. And when they did so, they were surrounded by community members who were chanting, "You're killing people." And those people were there because the folks affected by those closures had done such an amazing job making people understand the stakes, that if we lost those clinics, we would lose people, which we sadly eventually did. But that struggle also wove that fight into the fabric of what winning means to people here in this city and made it part of the progressive agenda that is part of the agenda of the mayor who was ultimately elected, who, despite many criticisms that many of us may have, and I have had, we absolutely can't underestimate the value of Brandon Johnson in this moment and what it means that Paul Vallis is not the mayor we have standing between us and Donald Trump. But there was an evening when I was standing in a field where we had an encampment, and every once in a while the police would mount and they would raid the encampment. And some people would go to jail and we'd wind up restaging the whole thing. But sometimes it was a fake out. They would act like they were going to raid, and they'd see how well we could mobilize in defense of the space. And this is typical if you've done encampment work. And so there weren't that many people in the camp who could afford another arrest, either because of their pre-existing history or because they had already gone to jail multiple times in the context of this campaign. And so we had the group of people who were actually willing to take arrest. And then we had those of us who were willing to fake it and kind of get in front of them and square off with the police and look real mean and hold our ground as long as we could before kind of scrambling to safety. And we decided to pile up some chairs in front of us, and they were folding chairs. And as I'm like moving these folding chairs into formation, someone comes up to me and it's like, is this just for the aesthetics or something? Like they can move these. And it was like, it will take them seconds to move these. And those are seconds in which the people who have to get away might actually get away. We use everything right now. And I've often thought of some of the Democrats in DC as those folding chairs. You use everything when you are staring down people who are ready to deprive you of your liberty and God knows what else. And so I think that's how we have to think about every measure of leverage and every impediment that can be created right now. For example, I'm an abolitionist. I am politically many things that give me no faith in the law and no faith in the courts, but every time the lawyers wage a fight that gets us another TRO or another 2 weeks on a TRO that matters, I am cheering like mad, and I am incredibly grateful for them. We use everything right now, and we all need to be working in partnership, uneasy but effective collaboration with anyone who can stave off any angle of violence. And when we don't have to live like this anymore, under the constant threat of who are they going to take from us next, and my phone is beeping incessantly at 8:30 in the morning because it's time to get in the streets again and try to be a deterrent to that shit. When we aren't in that mode anymore, there are many fights I'm willing to have with many people about what we do from there. But to get there, I need a lot of people who, there are ways in which I don't believe in them and ways in which they don't believe in me, but we know we need each other. And so that's how I'm approaching this right now. We take advantage of every angle. We find leverage wherever we can, and we employ the folding chairs.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that. Folding chairs is brilliant. I'm going to be thinking about that all day.
Didn't you make a T-shirt with a folding chair?
I did make that t-shirt.
Hi, I am from Tucson, Arizona. I live in Tucson, and there's a lot of new coalitions forming, and I often find myself in that moment of like, so excited there's another coalition because I'm like, this is the type of work we need to be doing, and also like, do we really need a new thing, like a new coalition again? Like, y'all, we have some structures, anyways. But like this joy around coalition building, and you talked a little bit about the need for scaling up, and I'm curious your thoughts more about like this moment and approaches to coalition building and approaches to how we're thinking about scale in this time.
I think we do need to scale up in really big ways right now. And that is, not something that I'm in alignment with all of my besties about. Some people are about keeping everything very small and very, very locally focused. I think we need those small and very focused formations, and that also we need to be able to move in very big ways. And that I think we have to accept the inherent imperfection of coalitions, which is something that is really hard for some of us to do, because we want to be able to have what to us feel like really baseline moral expectations of anybody we're going to throw down with. It's like, and these actually are very reasonable expectations to have of people, of politics, and also we need to think about the ends. We need to think about what has to happen and what gets us there. And again, that we need more people than understand everything we want them to understand to help us move in those directions. So I think this is an important time for coalitions. But again, what is the utility? towards what end? I'm not about coalition building for the fucking sake of it, because then we're just creating spaces for people to get into fights, and for like what fucking reason? Like, if we're gonna bring together a bunch of people who are gonna really struggle to fucking get along, like, let's have an intention. And not simply to say that we could do that we could bring all of those people into space, but that we actually have a fucking goal, and we're trying to bring those people together to say, let's all do this, and let's agree on that. And for the next 6 months, or whatever it is, we're gonna agree on that and maintain a united front about that. And from there, you can negotiate agreements that can create more peace between groups. Like we had, like, Occupy Chicago was a fucking mess, but we had the Chicago Principles, and that was a huge fucking accomplishment. Moving into the NATO summit with those Chicago Principles, with all of these groups, some of whom easily could have strangled each other over literally everything, agreeing not to criticize each other's tactics in public, not to come for each other in public. That we were going to respect a diversity of tactics, and also respect a separation of time and space between differing tactics. This shit was so important. And we were able to do it because we were building on the lineages of other folks who had done this under important moments of like mass organizing and mass mobilization. So examples and templates exist for getting things done with people who are not like us, but whom we need to do stuff. And the evidence that we need each other to do stuff is the fact that many people in this room have experiences working with people whose politics are just fucking bananas to them. Like, why? Because you agreed with them about not closing the schools. Why? Because you needed the numbers they had, or the skills they had, or they needed the skills you had that groups like theirs don't have. There's a secret sauce, right? That when we come together and we figure out how to tap into what we have to bring to the table and not fucking kill each other. And it's got to be purposeful, and it's got to be for something. And I think this moment is a great example of that. What we're up against in Chicago, there are a lot of great reasons to align across difference right now. And I hope that we'll keep doing that, and that we'll challenge ourselves to recognize that in the long game, there's going to be plenty of time to hash out a lot of the things that we need to hash out, but that right now we have very immediate aims that have to be attended to.
Nice. I want to point out that if you have a 9-to-5 job, you know how to do this. If you've worked with people in any group setting, you know how to do this. And we don't want to do it after hours, but we have the skill. We need to employ the skill of working with people who we don't agree about everything with. But you get through the workday because your survival is dependent on it. You need your paycheck. You got to pay your rent. So if you want to kind of scale that bigger, we need, the planet and a functioning society and all of that. Employ those skills in that setting. That is one thing that I want to say. Another thing I want to say is I really appreciate Emergent Strategy, Adrienne Marie Brown's book, as an imperfect book, but who has a perfect book? Please show me a perfect book. But also, what's the name of Andrea's book?
Kidding, it's not. Which Andrea book?
The one that kind of reflects the emergent strategy principles. Practicing New Worlds. I recommend if you're reading emergent strategy, I also recommend accompanying that with Practicing New Worlds to give you a little bit of a deeper analysis. But what I really appreciate about what I got from Adrienne Marie Brown's Emergent Strategy book is the idea that if you can't do it on a small scale, you're not going to do it on a big scale. If this group of people in this room can't figure out how to have a conversation and come to an agreement, you're not going to go to a stadium of thousands of people and get those people to come to some kind of agreement. Scaling is possible, but you have to build skills. You can't just dream it into being. I think we have a habit of, and for good reason, associating skills with talent and being like, oh, I don't know how to do that, so it's not going to happen. We can build skills. We can learn how to engage in, conflict and have conversations and work through it. It's not just either you can or you can't. These are skills, just like what we were saying, patience. Patience is a skill. We talk about this, again, I have an early childhood background. We talk about this with early childhood teachers who are the lowest paid, least respected educators, who have to have such an incredible breadth of knowledge of what a young child's brain can do in all areas, in all subjects. But they're expected to, wait, oh shit, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Patience, thank you. We have this understanding of patience as like, oh, that's a patient person. She's a patient lady, so she's a good teacher. Patience is a skill. Being able to observe a problematic behavior, hold off on responding to it, use your executive functioning to actually plan how you're going to address it in a way that reduces harm for all involved. Again, working with people who are still learning how to be people. That is a skill. Not everybody can walk into an early childhood classroom and make it through lunch. Lunch is a skill. And it involves patience, it involves planning, it involves understanding how to facilitate. Facilitation is a skill. I'm a facilitator, and I can tell you, I see a lot of spaces that are not well facilitated, and as Kelly knows, I'll be like, ooh, let me just, but no. We have to expect ourselves to continue to learn and expand skills. We gotta all skill up. We gotta identify what needs to happen, who currently has those skills, who can develop those skills. Like, we do have talents. Some people are better at things. Some people are better writers than others. Sure. Some people are better facilitators. Sure. But there's still skills that you can build. And I think we need to increase our expectations of ourselves as learners and stop associating learning with this, complex of public education that we've all been subject to, because there's so much that we can still be doing, and if we continue to learn, we're going to be better able to deal with the problems that we are facing in our movements. But if we're like, oh, I guess I'm done, if I don't have that talent, I can't do that, I don't know, it's over. We're leaving so much on the table, I think, and it's hard to be a learner because, again, I'm always going to bring it back to feelings. It's a vulnerable space to be in, and I feel like the less we practice it, the harder it is to step into that vulnerability. To be a learner, you have to be vulnerable, which is probably why children are better at it, because they're more prepared to do that, but it doesn't mean that we can't do that. If we want to expand capacity, if we want to scale up, if we want to take the good things we're doing locally and expand them, we're going to have to be learners. And we're going to have to learn how to live with fucking up in front of each other and give each other permission. It's like, if you've ever learned a second language, you don't learn the second language by not making mistakes, or third language, or fifth language. You have to fuck up to do it. You have to accept that it's going to happen, and you have to identify the fuck ups and turn them into learning opportunities. So we need to learn this language of engaging in movement together. And we have to understand that as we practice this language, which is going to involve the scaling up and, building capacity, as we learn this language, we're going to make so many mistakes. And if we can just accept that from the get-go, I think we're going to be a lot more successful. If we can kind of figure out how to move around our egos and hold each other in grace and say, it's cool, that I saw that, it was a stumble, get back on track, I'm here with you. We're gonna move so much further, so much faster, together. But we gotta get into being vulnerable and learning in public.
Thank you for that, Atena. We're coming to the end here, and I just want to name that the stuff we're talking about, stretching and challenging ourselves, dealing with people who are being difficult, we're not always going to have the space to do that. Especially right now, we're all under so much pressure. And let this radicalize you. You know, Miriam and I talk about the distinction between activism and organizing. It is perfectly legitimate to be like, I'm just going to make art for the movement. That's my activism. I'm just going to do research for the movement. I'm going to just show up in this one way that I know that I can, that makes sense for me. Nothing happens without the multitude of people who are willing to do that. And that also we need organizers. We need people who are willing to do that tough relational work. People who are willing to communicate in ways that are skills and not just feelings. I would simply say that if you're in that place where it's like, I can't show up in a good way for the person at school patrol who's going to say the messed up thing, make space for yourself. Let someone else deal with it. We can choose not to do harm and not to create acrimony, and just not make certain things our problem when we're not the one who's in a position to deal with that right now. We can do our work. We can do our work and do our part and make space for someone to have the patience that needs to be had, for someone to do the educating that needs to be done. It doesn't have to be you. And maybe on the right day, it will be you. And you'll see that opening. And, you know, I see a commonality with this person. I see a way I can explain this to them. And when that moment comes, good on you and thank you. Right now, if you are doing what you can where you are, I am so grateful for you. I am so grateful for what we are building and doing and modeling in this city right now. And I fucking love you, Chicago.
Period.
And thank you, Pilsen Community Books.
I think we all needed this space tonight. Thank you for giving your time after a very hard day on the north side. We really appreciate it.
I feel bad.
If you guys want to hang out, you can just fold up the folding chairs, put them against the wall. We'll be here for a few more minutes, and there's books there. But thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you all.
You know, Atena asked me a question to name a book while I was drinking up here.